OpenAI abandons the for-profit model. The nonprofit will remain in control. Zuckerberg admits that Facebook is no longer about friends. And a report from McKinsey says that projections for AI processing demand could be out by as much as $4 trillion. Welcome to #Trending. I'm your host, Jim Love. Let's get into it. OpenAI has decided to maintain its nonprofit structure, shelving plans to transition its for-profit subsidiary into an independent public benefit corporation, or PBC. This move comes after discussions with civic leaders and the attorneys general of California and Delaware, as well as legal challenges from co-founder Elon Musk, who alleged the nonprofit had deviated from its founding principles. CEO Sam Altman communicated the decision in a letter to employees, emphasizing OpenAI's commitment to its original mission of developing artificial general intelligence, AGI, that benefits all of humanity. While the for-profit arm will still convert into a PBC, the nonprofit will retain significant equity and governance control, ensuring that the organization's mission remains at the forefront. Altman was quizzed by the media on whether this change in plans had anything to do with Elon Musk's lawsuit, and his reply on a call with the press was succinct. He said, "You are all obsessed with Elon. That's your job. More power to you. But we are here to think about our mission and figure out how to enable that. And that mission has not changed." The company hopes the decision to retain nonprofit oversight will still allow for it to raise substantial investment necessary for the development and maintenance of AI tools like ChatGPT, but still retain what it says is its ethical and mission-driven governance. But without that additional capital, Altman noted, we currently cannot supply nearly as much AI as the world wants. With this new structure, OpenAI maintains that as the PBC grows, resources will also be available for the not-for-profit to support broad social benefits in areas such as healthcare, education, and scientific discovery. In a pivotal moment during the FTC's antitrust trial, Mark Zuckerberg acknowledged that Facebook has shifted from a platform for connecting friends and family to one focused on content discovery and entertainment. During his testimony, Zuckerberg stated that only about 20% of content on Facebook and 10% on Instagram comes from users' friends, with the majority originating from interest-based accounts. He explained people just kept on engaging with more and more stuff that wasn't what their friends were doing. This shift challenges the definition of Meta's market as a personal social networking service, which would focus on connecting friends and family. But Zuckerberg would claim that this also supports Meta's defense that the social media landscape has evolved, with platforms like TikTok and YouTube serving as significant competitors in the broader content discovery space. And when you're accused of being an anti-competitive monopoly, that's a big deal. But the FTC still alleges that Meta's acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp were part of a buy or bury strategy, not to enrich people's networks, but to eliminate competition. And the FTC case is supported by internal emails presented during the trial that revealed that Zuckerberg considered Instagram a competitive threat and contemplated acquiring it to neutralize that threat. And in a 2018 document shown at trial, Zuckerberg even floated the idea of spinning off Instagram to avoid regulatory scrutiny, indicating his awareness of potential antitrust issues. Zuckerberg's testimony about the transformation of Facebook from a personal networking site to a content-driven platform may tell us something most of us already know. But there's a lot at stake as the court considers the interpretation of the social media landscape that will be crucial in determining whether Meta's acquisitions were anti-competitive. It's a ruling that could have huge impacts on Meta and may also determine how antitrust laws are applied to rapidly evolving digital markets, potentially impacting future mergers and acquisitions in the tech industry. And are companies building enough or too much capacity to meet the new demands of AI? That's the trillion-dollar question. Actually, it's more like a $4 trillion question if you believe a recent report from McKinsey. McKinsey's report states that the global demand for data center capacity could almost triple by 2030, with about 70% of that demand coming from AI workloads. But at the same time, it warns that the staggering capital pouring into AI data centers, the estimate between 3.7 trillion and 7.9 trillion by 2030, is largely based on speculative demand, which is analysts speak for pretty good guess based on some assumptions. According to McKinsey, the projected capital expenditures hinge on key assumptions about AI adoption rates, technological advancements, and energy availability. Given the large number of unknowns, McKinsey doesn't offer an estimate. Instead, the report outlines three scenarios, sort of like a Goldilocks story. There's the first case with a constrained demand requiring about 3.7 trillion in capital investment. There's a second or mid-range scenario with about 5.2 trillion required, and a third or accelerated demand scenario demanding $7.9 trillion. Now that's a big spread, reflecting a difference in growth of about 78 gigawatts at the low end and about 205 gigawatts at the high end between 2025 and 2030. Listeners may remember that megawatts and gigawatts are how data center capacity is described. And a gigawatt is roughly enough to power 750,000 homes all at once, or the output of a very large nuclear plant in full operation. And these estimates could be out by a factor of 78 or as high as 205. Given that massive spread, you might want to be more certain about the forecasts. But what fuels the uncertainty? Well, there's the question about usage models. Does AI really take over our industries and require more and more capacity? But that's the most minor assumption, believe it or not. There are real questions about how much we'll see in terms of advancements in AI efficiency. The Chinese model DeepSeek V3 reduced training costs by a factor of 18 times. Training results in a huge amount of machine cycles. Just as an indication of how much resource this is, the training costs alone for ChatGPT 4.0 may have run as much as $100 million. But even when the AI is trained and up and running, at runtime, the so-called inference costs, processing that occurs after you ask the question, that was reduced by about 36 times in DeepSeek V3 versus ChatGPT 4.0. But even if we find a way to become much more efficient and drive down costs, there's a new term that everyone is using called Jevons paradox. Essentially, it says that when the cost of something comes down, there's more usage, and that, in this case, could negate all of the savings. That's the uncertainty on the usage side. But even the most optimistic of us have to admit there are a lot of projections, and there are some good early indications that AI will have an enormous impact on productivity and be used in industry, and in some scenarios it may replace a lot of human labor, but there's little actual data. So growth is contingent upon uncertain factors, including the successful development and practical usage of a range of new transformative AI applications. So growth is contingent upon uncertain factors, including the successful development and practical usage of a range of new transformative AI applications. But that uncertainty hasn't stopped companies from investing in huge amounts of data center capacity. To be fair, Microsoft and others have appeared to be trying to hedge their bets, but the amounts being spent are substantial, and with any data center investment, you have to start building years before you can bring it online. Not only the data center, but you have to make sure you have the power you need. So in the first quarter of 2025 alone, U.S. hyperscalers like Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, and Alphabet invested approximately $81 billion in AI-driven data centers, with projections suggesting combined spending could exceed $300 billion by year-end. Apple has separately announced a historic $500 billion investment over 4 years targeting AI manufacturing and silicon engineering in the U.S. And there's the Stargate project, a joint venture with SoftBank, OpenAI, and Oracle, as the initial equity funders, aiming to invest up to $500 billion over 4 years to build advanced AI infrastructure in the United States. Even this investment leaves a huge gap between what's invested and the estimates of what's needed. And all of this with actual demand having a huge level of uncertainty. Now, as noted, AI has the potential to revolutionize industries, but the current lack of clear, quantifiable ROI metrics makes it challenging for companies to justify these expenditures. And the rapid pace of AI development could render some of the infrastructure obsolete before it even delivers the expected returns. So with a spread of almost $4 trillion between the low and high estimates, this could have a real impact on company profits for a number of companies. So if you're an analyst from McKinsey, you'd probably say something like, the projections for AI-driven data center investments are based on speculative demand, lacking concrete measurable data to fully support the anticipated growth. And if you're just the average guy, you sound a lot more like an old-time auto mechanic. How much will it cost? It depends. And that's our show for today. Love to hear your estimate of how well we did. You can reach us at editorial@technewsday.ca or on LinkedIn, or if you're watching on YouTube, right under the video. And our estimates are probably very accurate, although we've received a generous response and we're very picky about who we would take as a sponsor. We're about a quarter of the way in terms of how much we need to keep bringing you these programs. And if you want to help with that, please go to buymeacoffee.com/techpodcasts and buy us a coffee. If you already have, you are double thanked by us. I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a terrific Tuesday.